Everybody ready? Good evening, everyone. I'm calling to order the meeting of the Pittsboro Board of Commissioners for Monday, the 24th day of April, 2023. Please join me in a moment of silence. Thank you. Commissioner Farrell, would you lead us in the pledge?
Would everyone rise for the pledge? Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Thank you. You have your agenda before you. And I'll accept a motion to either approve the agenda or modify it in some form.
I'll make a motion to approve with moving number 12 to new business 2.
All right.
That was the item that was added this afternoon.
Yes. Motion by Commissioner Shipp, seconded by Commissioner Vose. Those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the motion carries unanimously. Now is the time for a proclamation, and so I'll ask Dr. Russell if he will join me at the podium. This evening, we have the honor of having Dr. Frank H. Russell join us, and the proclamation is as follows. The town of Pittsboro recognizes individuals in our town who are distinguished by age or ability, and on this day, the town celebrates both attributes as we honor Dr. Frank Russell. Whereas Frank H. Russell was born on April 23rd, 1928. And whereas Frank H. Russell graduated from the University of Tennessee at Knoxville and served in the United States Navy as an officer on the USS Pittsburgh and USS Randolph. And whereas Frank H. Russell obtained his medical degree from the University of Tennessee Medical School in Memphis. And whereas Dr. Russell held a surgical internship at Bellevue Hospital in New York City, followed by 2 years as chief resident of Beckman Hospital. And whereas Dr. Russell had a distinguished career as a trauma surgeon on the North Shore of Long Island, New York, where he positively impacted hundreds of lives and trained many public safety professionals on life-saving techniques. Whereas Dr. Russell retired to Vermont, where he designed and built boats and airplanes and entertained friends and family. And whereas Dr. Russell has now permanently moved to Pittsboro, North Carolina, where he continues to build model boats and airplanes and host his children and grandchildren at 21 Randolph Court. Now, therefore, be it resolved this day that we recognize and celebrate Dr. Frank H. Russell's 95th birthday and proclaim this to be Dr. Frank Russell Day in the town of Pittsboro. As soon as we sign it, and if we have a frame for it, and we will give you that by the end of the evening. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so
It's a
very
pleasure to have you with us.
much. I love North Carolina.
We do too.
Wow. Place is lovely. I'm delighted. I guess I'm going to spend my last few years there. Since I've gotten this far along, I'm looking toward 100.
What a pleasure. All right, we're next at Citizens Matters and Manager Update. Kent Jackson, our interim manager, will be presenting our updates this evening.
Thank you, Mayor. Okay, so give my updates front and center tonight. So very exciting night for town of Pittsboro. I have the pleasure tonight to introduce our new planning director. Randy Cahoon Tingle, he started employment with the town on April 17th. So he's already a weekend now. So we're extremely excited to have Randy here. So a little bit about Randy. He is a graduate of East Carolina University with a Bachelor of Science degree in urban and regional planning. He is also a certified planner with the American Institute of Certified Planners. Randy is also a certified zoning official in North Carolina, and he completed the municipal administration certification course at through the UNC School of Government. So certainly has a very sound and diverse qualification in that regard. He also has quite a bit of experience with stormwater, which we are glad to add to our staff. Included in that experience with stormwater, we're particularly intrigued with his experience with helping a community to work through establishing a stormwater utility. So if that should be in our future, we'd have that experience on board. We're very pleased to have Randy. And what you will notice immediately, Randy is a very fun person to be around. So we're excited about that aspect too. He has 20 years of planning experience in North Carolina, working in growing towns like ours. And he is a native of New Bern, North Carolina. So Randy, hearty welcome to town of Pittsboro, and we look forward to many great things to come.
Excuse me. Thank you very much. It's an honor to be here, and I'm looking forward to working with each of you.
Thank you.
Yes.
Glad to have you, Randy.
Yes, very nice to have you on board.
And so, Mayor, that's the highlight of my updates for sure. Certainly, we also a couple of other things. We talk about our, what a great staff we have, and we've just added another a great addition. But I'll kind of brag on Colby Sawyer tonight. We kicked off this Citizens Academy about 3 weeks ago, so we're about midway into that. And it has been a raving success so far, and much of that credit goes to Colby. This, it's obviously a new initiative venture for the town. He's really done a great job of getting that program organized, registered, engaging with the participants, and so that is going really well. So we have, I think, 3 more sessions. Colby, is that right? 4 more sessions. So anyway, that is going really well. And then with our discussions with the city of Sanford regarding merger of our utility systems, that has been ongoing for probably the better part of a year now, almost, since the initial resolution of intent was passed. Last week certainly was turned to be a pivotal week in that discussion. We did set a schedule last week for bringing some agreements to the board for review and consideration. And if we stay on that schedule, then the board will be seeing those agreements in the early part of the summer. And then, presumably working through that process throughout the summer toward a possible decision point in late summer. So we're very encouraged. Certainly, staff wants to recognize and appreciate the contributions of Commissioner Shipp and Farrell. And last week, Commissioner Vose was able to stand in for Commissioner Farrell. So their input and involvement has been extremely helpful. So very, very positive in the aspect of moving that process forward.
Good news, good news.
Thank you very much, Kent Jackson. It's been a busy week. The various things that I've attended to include on the 19th of this month, cutting the ribbon at the new Caldwell Banker office, more in downtown than it has been before. And then that afternoon, participating with Commissioner Shipp and staff on a conference call with United Way. On the 21st, I cut the ribbon at Rachel's native plants down at the plant. And that was a festive occasion. And upcoming on the 26th, I'll be speaking at the Chatham Development Briefing, providing updates for the town. I also wanted to thank Mayor Pro-Tem Baldwin for assisting while I was out of town and handling the April 10th meeting. Thank you very much.
Certainly.
Your updates?
Okay, thank you very much, Mayor, and it was an honor to do that for you.
Great, thank you.
I first attended the Triangle J Council of Governments meeting on Thursday, April 20th, 2023, and we discussed the proposed budget for the Triangle J Council of Governments, which is $40,443,100. So basically, I did send you all that information, the budget information and everything. So this is the proposed budget with the breakdowns, and that will be brought before the entire board at our next meeting, which will be in May. And then secondly, we also discussed the change of name for the Triangle J Council of Governments, which is they're considering it, changing it to the Pines of Carolina Council of Governments. So they are working on that with a new vision and a new branding. So basically that was most of the things that we discussed at that meeting on Thursday. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Bonitz,
I have no updates.
Commissioner Farrell,
I attended the PBA meeting last week, and Dara Everett was there, and she gave a very nice presentation. She's actually been promoted, but it's a promotion, but it's also, she went from serving 4 counties in our area to 29 now. So she's going to definitely have her hands full. And she pretty much just went over some opportunities that Duke Energy had for local businesses, savings, LED lighting. Actually, we did that same program about a year ago in our restaurant. So it's a very good savings and very good and short meeting. Best ones, right? That's all I have.
Commissioner Shipp.
Okay. So Kent mentioned the regionalization meeting. Appreciate Commissioner Vose attending that. And we had a EDC meeting on April 19th, and they hired a new employee, Jack Pendergraph. So he's focused on business expansion and retention of current small businesses. So it's good to have that focus. And there was a special event you probably saw in the news down at VinFast at the Moore Center. The governor attended that about the impact on the community. And then May 16th, Wolfspeed is going to do another supplier and hiring event here at the Ag Center. The mayor mentioned a few ribbon cuttings there. And then we also had a visit from Gabriel Esparza, who works with Foreign Trade with the Small Business Administration. So he went to Hobbs, or sorry, not Hobbs, he went to Hewitt Pottery and then to French Connection here in town and talked about small businesses working in international trade. I completed the course from the UNC School of Government, leading the way to board excellence. I've been working on that the last 4 months with others. And then this week, Janie and I are going to present at the City of Wichita Conference in Concord. So we hope to finish our presentation before we give it.
Mr. Vose.
Okay, Commissioner Shipp, could I ask you to elaborate on the VinFast event? I did not catch that news.
Yeah, so it was on Wednesday, the 19th, and it was at the Moore Center, which is going to be a training center. So VinFast has some spaces. So it's going to be a training center for CCCC. And VinFast has some specific space in there they're going to fit out to train workers for VinFast. So the governor was there and a lot of other officials. They had some VinFast cars, and I think they were driving them around inside. It's an old the Magneti Morielli factory, I think, that Mr. Moore purchased, I believe, or donated money towards the purchase and then gave it to CCCC. But it's right. It's next to their campus in Sanford, so it's an expansion of their campus directly on there.
Thanks. Very helpful.
On the 19th, I did attend the regionalization meeting with Commissioner Shipp. Yesterday, I made it out to Clyde Fest and was happy to see that that was well attended here at the Ag Center. The Arts Council meets tomorrow. I'll also be at the Chamber of Commerce's Chatham Development Briefing Breakfast Wednesday at the Ag Center from 8:30 to 10:45. Regarding concerns, I want to bring up old things. And at our last meeting, we discussed inset system development fees. Staff suggested a low number of $10,638 and a high recommendation of a little over $26,000. We were further told by staff that the $26,000 number was leaning towards the funding for capital projects that we need. $26,000 is leaning towards what we need. And then we set it at $11,000 because that was more in line with neighboring jurisdictions. I just want to remind everybody that none of these SDF dollars will be paid for by existing ratepayers, that we're staring at an already challenged budget and asking for help from Raleigh and Washington, D.C. And we set that amount at $11,000. My fear is that the dollars not collected here will be paid for by existing ratepayers, and that's what's concerning me tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Vose. Now is the time for public comment. Is there anyone signed up?
We have none, Mayor.
No one is signed up. Next item then is the consent agenda. We have already moved item number 12 to new business number 2. Other than that, is there a motion to approve the remaining 11 parts of the consent agenda?
So moved.
Moved by Mayor Pro-Tem Baldwin, seconded by Commissioner Bonitz. Those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries unanimously. All right, so we are at the end of the consent agenda then. And now it is appropriate to have a motion to open the public hearing for item number 1, the Suttles Road Grantham Family LLC matter.
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Shipp, seconded by Commissioner Rose. Those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries unanimously. And Janie Phelps will lead us in the discussion to the extent of opening and conducting the public hearing.
Yes, thank you. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. There's just a few minor changes that the applicant contacted me about today. So I will show those. Very minor. One is just to remove in this condition 5E, to remove the land dedication. So that was not in the original application, and that was staff's oversight. There was also some street sections that they wanted updated. I had used a previous one on accident, so those have been updated, but they look very similar. And then the other one is the applicant has requested a condition for high density for the development. However, there was a text amendment passed back in October to allow high density by right or by default with multifamily residential. So it's already covered. They're wanting to reference it and call out the specific section. This is something very common that happens in planning, to where conditions are set, the ordinance changes, but whatever projects are approved under, it's approved under that UDO or that zoning ordinance, whatever it was approved at the time. So staff doesn't have an issue with it because it's already in there, and that's up to you all to decide if you want to add it in. Because the section could change as well in the future, and then it might still be confusing anyways, and we'll have to go back and see what it was at that time. The applicant is also here. They have a short presentation, but before they start, do you have any questions for me?
I'm sorry, what?
Do you have any questions before the applicant
Okay.
says a few
I have
words?
questions for JD before we hear from the applicant. All right, thank you.
Okay.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, Commissioners and staff, and new Planning Director. Welcome. My name is Nick Robinson, and I practice law here in Pittsboro at Bradshaw, Robinson, Slaughter, and Rayner, 128 Hillsboro Street, 27312. And I am delighted to be here tonight, this evening, representing the applicant, GM Chatham SPE1 LLC, in this conditional rezoning request for the Grantham property. By way of short background, we have appreciated, as we did with the prior Malott rezoning, that with the adoption of your UDO, the town would really like to see rezoning requests that fall into designated zoning districts that are specified under the UDO and described, without need of a special use permit. And so in this case, as we did in Malott, we're seeking a rezoning of the Grantham tract from its current zoning, which is RA2, 2-acre lot minimum size there, to a multifamily residential conditional zoning district. Multifamily residential is an approved base zoning district under the UDO. So in summary, we're doing what you have asked, which is working with the tools that were created by this board within the UDO toolbox. We come to you tonight after an excellent meeting with your planning board that took place on February 26th, 2023, and the planning board reviewed the project in detail and unanimously recommended approval of the proposed rezoning with the conditions that we have presented to you. So we hope that tonight, during this public hearing, what we hope to accomplish is to just lay out the plan. Robbie Oldham will be up here in just a second to do that, and the requested rezoning, and then seek your approval tonight, hopefully, of the rezoning. With me tonight, as I mentioned, is Robbie Oldham and Chuck Smith. My law partner, Patrick Bradshaw, is here as well. And online, we have two consultants, Kevin Dean, who is a traffic consultant, and Nick Kirkland, who is a real estate appraiser consultant in the event that they might be needed. So I think now what I'd like to do is just turn it over to Robbie Oldham to give you the visual presentation of what we're requesting, and then just reserve a second or two, maybe a minute after he's done, to mention a couple of items. And then to the extent there's any public comment after our presentation or any further testimony or evidence from someone in the public, just want to reserve the right to respond to that. Thank you very much. Robbie?
Thank you. Good evening, Robbie Oden, Weathers Ravenel. So Colby's going to share his screen. All right, perfect. And really, this is really a short presentation. This is really what we provided to the planning board, and it's more just provide graphics. I mean, we can talk about the text. You got the package in front of you, but we've always realized that just graphics help. This property, we took the Shannon Park North Village Illustrative Plan, highlighted this property, as you can see, and this is highlighted there in the purple. And we talked about a few months ago about the school site that's just to the north west, and then it just shows how it ties into the development back to the east as well. And I've got a graphic that shows that as well. But first, I'll start off with utilities. That's always probably the number one question in a lot of this. There's an existing 12-inch water line within Suttles Road that was installed by Chatham Park that leads to the elevated water tank. This property, the elevated water tank is just literally a few hundred feet from this property to the back to the east. So there's existing water there. Sewer will be provided by the Chatham Park Water Recovery Center. Actually, part of this site, the kind of the pink in that bottom corner, will be gravity to the Chatham Park existing gravity sewer, and that's the town of Pittsboro gravity sewer. The remaining portion to the north actually kind of flows back to the north and to the east. Will ultimately be served by a pump station, but that will be served by the Chatham Park Water Recovery Center. As far as roadways, as you can see, most of this site fronts Suttles Road to the south. And then you can see we've shown a road connection in there. You can see it better on the second graphic, but we will be providing the roadway connection through the site that will tie back out to Chatham Parkway, providing connectivity. So next slide, please. Okay, this is just the graphic that you actually have in your packet. And I just want to talk a little bit about that. Yeah, thank you. So we're looking at two districts, MR1 and MR2. MR1 is the yellow to the north there. And with the UDO and the MR district, it allows up to 23 uses. We're proposing with our condition, we're proposing 6 or 7 uses. It really comes down to 3 or 4 uses, which is in the yellow, we're allowing or proposing single family and townhomes. MR2 is that kind of pink red to the south. We're proposing single family townhomes and multifamily. So then what we've also done is actually put a cap, if you will, on the density of the number of units. So with the MR1 in the yellow to the top, we're at a condition for the max number of units you can see on this. It may be hard to read, but a maximum of 360 dwelling units. So that equates to 6 dwelling units per acre. If you look at what the UDO allows with MR district, it allows up to 8 and 12 units, for single family and townhomes. So we're looking at about half of what would be allowed. For the MR2, and you'll see why we've got the apartments there in just a second, but that allows multifamily up to 20 dwelling units, which matches what's in the UDO. All right, next slide, please. So this is probably one of the best graphics, just to be able to see, why are we proposing this? And this helps, kind of paint a picture. No, this is illustrative. This is, we're not saying we're doing this, but this provides illustrative of what we're proposing with the rezoning request tonight. And you can see, and I know it's shaded back to the right of your screen or to the east, that's section 6.1. That's Chatham Park, section 6.1. That's basically going to be the village center. That's going to be high density, mixed use, apartments. So this, if you can look at this property, you're going from, basically, you're providing a transition between these properties moving from basically from the east back to the west. So then that ties into the proposed development, again, to the village center, which we have apartments next to apartments and mixed use. Then as you move to the north, we're proposing again single family and townhomes, which basically, joins single family to the north, a park to the north. And then ultimately it doesn't directly adjoin the school, but then the school back to the northeast. So again, with this, and it's conditional rezoning. So we have, instead of just, we're limiting this to those just a couple of uses. Well, I say a couple of 6 or 7 when you include parks and things like that. But it really limits and it provides this transition between the adjoining land uses. And the final slide. I know, and this came up at planning board, and it's a good question. Everybody wants to know about connectivity, especially with bike lanes and greenways and multi-use trails. So if you look here, the green is the proposed greenways. The pink, purple, magenta is multi-use trails. And of course, we've got bike lanes. So we've got Grant Drive there. It runs east-west, north of the site. There will be a 10-foot multi-use trail on the north side of that. And you heard this a couple of months ago. I know we talked about them a lot. And then we have Chatham Parkway, the DOT project, they're proposing a 10-foot multi-use trail on each side. So what we're trying to do with this site, in particular with Grantham, the town's master greenway plan has a 10-foot greenway shown going diagonally through the site. So we're meeting that, but the town's master plan does not show anything on Suttles Road. So we're working with staff. We've had a couple of good meetings with staff. We're looking at making that connection all the way from the north west part of the screen there that's actually ties to Mosaic, and bringing that all the way along Suttles, all the way down. So it actually ties into this, to the Grantham track, ties into that Greenway Trail, and then actually continues on all the way to Chatham Parkway. So again, there's some great challenges along Suttles Road. We're looking at that now, but so what the condition we've got is actually the greenway that runs diagonal through the site. But and also this is recent, and I don't think we had looked at this last time that we talked about this, is if you'll look just to the north of this, the pink line that curves by the school, we're looking at a 10-foot multi-use trail. That's basically the connector road that connects Suttles back out to Grant Drive. So on the east side of that road will be the proposed Chatham County Elementary School site. And then opposite of that will be single family residential. So we're proposing a 10-foot multi-use trail along the school side of that as well. So with this here, I mean, you can just look at the big picture of the connectivity and, and we take pride in that. And again, working with town, there's some challenges with some grades and some permitting. And again, so staff has been great. We're trying to figure out how we can get some of these permitted and make those connections. So that concludes my presentation. I don't know if you want to say anything else or not.
Thank you, Mr. Alden.
Thank you, Robert. So the UDO, as I'm sure you're all familiar, sets up 10 factors that are to be reviewed in the case of a legislative rezoning like this one. And we've given detailed responses to each of those in the application materials themselves. And your staff has reviewed those, and your planning board has reviewed those, and each concluding that all of those 10 factors either met or can be met by this project. And so I'm not going to belabor the point and walk you through all 10 of them, but if there's anyone that you have a question about, feel free to ask. But suffice it to say that as part of this public hearing, we assert that all 10 of those factors are amply met and justify a vote approving the rezoning. Also, I think it's important to note that we have had no opposition from any adjoiners to the property. We had a community information meeting as is required and had no attendees at that meeting other than ourselves. We have heard nothing from the public or anyone by telephone otherwise in opposition. And so I would just say that that we would request at the end of the hearing that you vote in favor of the proposed rezoning. With regard to the one condition that Janie mentioned that we were going back and forth on, I just want to read to you. When we submitted the application, we included a request that this condition be included as part of the approval if it is approved. What Janie is saying is that there's been an amendment to the UDO that addresses the same topic as the condition. And what we want to say about that is that the language that we want to include is very simple, and it specifically points to the provisions in your UDO that we're trying to incorporate and make sure are clearly incorporated into any approval. And I always like to think about these things. If something comes up about this issue 10 years from now and none of us is around, I would like for the documentation of it to be easily interpreted and readily available to anyone who can read it. And so we would respectfully request that the condition carry through into any approval. And the language is just this: the subject property will be developed with the high density development option pursuant to the town of Pittsboro's Unified Development Ordinance in accordance with UDO sections 2.3.8C, note number 4, and 2.6.2K. All other things being equal, we would request that condition be included in any approval, along with the other conditions which we've reviewed with staff and are in agreement with all of those. That's it for now, unless there are questions. I'll just sit down and you can open the hearing to the public, and we'll just reserve a little right to respond to that or to respond to any questions you might have.
Yeah, I have questions. Thank you, Mr. Robinson. Thank you, Mr. Odom. I'm curious whether or not this has any subsidized affordable housing in it. And if not, why not?
Right. It's a great question. And so every conversation about affordable housing in Pittsboro has to begin with the recognition that the Uniform and the Unified Development Ordinance creates an opportunity for affordable housing or subsidized housing that is an optional program. In other words, if the developer wants certain incentives, then the developer can get those incentives by incorporating affordable housing into their project, but it's not required and it can't be required. And so in this case, the developer is not seeking any of those incentives and has not included subsidized housing. So that's the technical sort of ordinance view of affordable housing. But I think it's also really important to take a look at this from the standpoint of this tract and this property and the relative amount of affordable housing that this project is going to allow. And by that, I don't mean technically affordable under the legal definition of it. I just mean more affordable than what would currently be allowed under the current zoning. And the current zoning for this property, as I mentioned earlier, is RA2, which you all know means that the minimum lot size on this property, if left in its current zoning, is 2 acres per lot. In today's market, I mean, estimated cost for a 2-acre lot in a location like that would probably be $300,000 just for the lot. A rule of thumb for houses built on lots is that the lot price is usually about 25% of the ultimate cost of the house and the lot together. So if you leave the zoning in its current zoning, RA2, you're probably looking at houses over $1 million in price. In lieu of that, what we're proposing is to allow what your land use plan calls for over and over and over again, which is a variety of different types of housing available to the market along the entire continuum, from fully subsidized housing all the way up to completely unsubsidized housing and everything in between. And what this project will allow is a lot of multifamily units, up to 330, which will, by sheer force of economics, be vastly more affordable than $1 million houses on 2-acre lots. And so we submit to you that when you look at this project, when you look at this piece of land and its current zoning and the relative availability of housing and its affordability after the rezoning, as opposed to currently, then you wind up with much more affordable housing that matches up with your land use goals of creating a variety of different housing types in Pittsboro. So that's the reasoning.
Well, the density is not my concern.
Mhm.
In fact, the lack of density is my concern.
Mm.
And I'm curious why this particular effort is only aiming for 6 units per acre rather than 8 units per acre.
I think that's a result of a lot of sort of careful land planning that would go into it. And Robbie might be able to speak to that a little bit more than I, but they looked at the land, they look at its configuration and its grading and everything else. They look at the topographical features and the riparian features, et cetera, and then they figure out what they can reasonably do. And, it's also true that they take into account everything else that's around it and whether or not that amount of density would work in that particular location. And if that's not a good enough answer, it wouldn't surprise me, then I'm sure Robbie can supplement.
I'd like to hear more.
Question you responded, I'm sorry.
Yeah, the question is just why not more density than 6 units per acre?
Yeah, so with the transition, I think it really comes down to Nick exactly right. this is very preliminary when we're looking at it, but it's more about the transition and working with adjacent properties to the north and to the west. So again, this could all been 6, 8, 12 units. We're doing a combination of 20 to the south and, 6, it's like 6.05 or something, that combination to the, for the MR1 to the north. So it's really about that transition and what we think is really works with the market as well. So, but more about the transition between the properties to the surrounding it.
Mhm. Well, I'll just get to the chase here. With the Malat project having not offered any affordable housing, and with this larger acreage also not offering any affordable housing, I think that the Chatham Park investors are running out of land in proximity to the current activity centers or village centers. And proximity of density to those commercial services is vital and critical to affordable housing. So what is the plan?
Commissioner Bonitz, yes, that's a great point, and I agree with it. Another point to make tonight is that pending right now is a proposed revision to the small area, the Chatham Park North Village Small Area Plan. The idea behind that revision to the small area plan is going to be to reconfigure things so that within 100 yards or so of this site will be the opportunity for up to 1,200 multifamily units that would be subject to the Chatham Park affordable housing element. And so what you're talking about is making sure that you have affordable housing in a location that's centralized and close to the places that it needs to be. This would accomplish just that. And I think it's really important always to look at the narrow context, which is this tract of land itself, which is the only thing that's before you tonight. But then also to take into account the greater context, which is this tract of land is right next to Chatham Park. And so I think it's fair to say that this tract by itself is going to incredibly enhance the amount of available housing and its affordability on that tract. And then right next to it, with the small area plan revision underway, you're going to see an opportunity for synergy between those two things when there's a large amount of potentially subsidized affordable housing, workforce housing available nearby.
May I ask what the price point will be?
Price point.
Ish.
And in Grantham? That I don't know. So you're talking about rental properties, right, and multifamily. It'll be dictated, but it'll be market rate, whatever that is.
And Chuck Smith, did you wish to? All right, thank you.
Okay.
So basically just to add on to what both commissioners have stated in reference to affordable housing, I'm very concerned about that as well. So basically, when you say affordable, I'm not talking about subsidized homes. I'm talking about those workforce homes. So the people who live who work in the town of Pittsboro, who work for Chatham County, who work for the Board of Education and the school system can afford to buy at least a condo, if not a single family home within that area. So that is my concern and continues to be my concern with these homes that you all.
Sure. Yeah, I understand. And we're sympathetic to that too. I mean, it's obviously it's a felt need in the community that's been stated. And that's why we're, pretty excited about the fact that in the not too distant future, there's going to be ample opportunities for that very close to this tract.
It sounds like though that the proposal that you referred to obliquely, in the small area plan changes is going to be project style affordable housing, concentrated. It will not be scattered throughout.
Well, I can't really speak to that exactly, but I think it will be scattered throughout Chatham Park. It won't all be in one location in Chatham Park.
The units in the Grantham family.
Yes.
Grantham project, tract. How much will those sell for?
The what?
How much will those sell for?
I don't think there's going to be any for sale units in there. I think there
Those
will
are
be,
all rentals.
right.
Okay, I just wanted to
Yeah.
make sure I was understanding. Wow.
Further questions for Mr. Robinson? And are there members of the public who wish to make comment on the plan or what has been supplemented to the plan by the speakers tonight?
Madam Chair, we don't have anybody sign up for public hearing.
Thank you. We would be willing to hear anybody that had failed to sign up but wish to do so, wish to speak at this time. Okay. Hearing none? Oh, go
Mayor
ahead.
Perry, if I may, I'd like to offer some wrap-up comments.
Mhm.
I very much appreciate staff's work on this and the clear note that this particular community need for a greater diversity of units, residential units, can be met, but hasn't been met. I'm glad that that was clarified in the staff analysis. The reason that I have brought this up is indeed that we are running out of land in proximity to the existing groceries and services and commercial areas. And Chatham Park is running out of these opportunities. And I believe that this tract, the Grantham project, is related some way to the Chatham Park investors. Regardless, their affordable housing policy does allow them to have affordable housing outside of their PDD. So there's no reason why it couldn't have been included with this project. And we're literally running out of opportunities to have more affordable housing. And yet they have yet to show us a single plan for affordable housing. I think that it's been made abundantly clear over almost a decade that this board and other boards, Mayor yourself and the prior mayor, who chaired the Public Input Committee, highlighting the preference and the need for diverse neighborhoods with a mix of price points and rentals, so that we are living amongst one another, diversity of income levels, diversity of folks. And I don't see it, and it greatly concerns me. And like to know when we're going to, I'm eager to see the townhouses are proposed in here. Or row houses, but when are we going to see the duplexes, the triplexes, the quadplexes, and the much higher density projects that would enable the breadth of affordable housing types that are subsidized, affordable, and workforce affordable, market rate affordable. Commissioner Baldwin, I greatly appreciate you airing your concerns about the workforce. It is a profound need, and I'm a little bit surprised that it hasn't been addressed so far. So I am discouraged.
Further comment or discussion on the issue? What is the pleasure of the board? Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to go out of public hearing.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Shipp, seconded by Commissioner Bonitz. Those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Move to old business.
Well, I think that it is a needed mix of housing in this area, and Chatham Park is required to provide affordable and workforce housing. So I share the same concerns about density in these areas. But I think that, you know, as they say, going from RA2 to this many units of a multifamily nature is what we are trying to do to make things more affordable. And I think we're limited by what we're able to compel in many cases.
Is there a motion in that?
I'll make a motion to approve the rezoning with the 3 changes noted.
Motion by Commissioner Shipp. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Farrell. Is there any further discussion? Those in, oh, yes, go ahead.
I just would like to make one comment, but yes, definitely, Commissioner Shipp, I do understand that in reference to there being in that element affordable housing for Chatham Park, and I hope that this is going in the correct direction. I do see that there are different, there will be apartments, hopefully townhomes and condos within that area. So I do hope that this is going into the right direction in terms of becoming affordable for the town of Pittsboro with this housing need, because of course, we all know it's a very, very serious need here for homes which are within a certain range, so that you just don't exclude people from being able to live in the town of Pittsboro. So, but I do hope that this is going in the correct direction, and hopefully it will go even further when they come before us again.
And I'll say too, I think I say this a lot, but I'll open to working with any developer or anybody that has better ideas on incentives. You know, not even me personally, but you know, a lot of people spend a lot of effort on the incentives for affordable housing that are in the UDO, and they haven't proven to be incentives in any cases yet. So, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, I'm happy to make changes to those incentives to encourage more affordable housing to do what we need to do, because you know, as they are, it seems like they don't work, which is okay. We can iterate, we can make them better, but you know, I'm interested to hear the ideas around how we can do that differently.
All right, there's a motion on the floor by Commissioner Shipp, seconded by Commissioner Farrell to approve the Grantham project. Those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed,
Opposed.
the motion carries 4-1. All right, under old business, Janie, you're with us again with respect to 196 Hillsboro Street.
Okay. Yes, this has been ongoing for quite some time, but hopefully it's being resolved now. So let me share my screen again. Okay. So this is the memo that's in your packet, and I'll just break it down in a few short sentences. So the property was put under investigation, and there was a hearing held in October. The compliance date was set to today. So it's up to you all to make the decision to either move forward with the town enforcing, since there hasn't been compliance, or what staff is suggesting is allowing an additional 2 weeks to May 8th to bring it into compliance. So what that means is we have requested the property owner to obtain a signed contract from a demolition company, because that's been the route that they've decided to take, is to demo the building. So we're requesting a signed contract that has basic information such as the date that it will be demolished, when everything will be taken away. So that hasn't happened yet. The property owner did submit a quote today of the company that they're going to go with, and they sent it to me. I've redacted the price. I didn't feel like that was pertinent information to you all or to the public, but I do have the agreement, or at least the quote that's valid for 60 days, and they should have a contract by the end of the week. So what staff is hoping for by May 8th is to have a copy of the signed contract, and that way we would have a date. But again, that's up to you all. If you wish to not grant that, then town staff would move forward. But if they're proposing to demolish it anyways, then it doesn't really make sense to do that.
Questions for Janie Phelps?
I guess I've heard various things about the property, whether it needs to be demolished or not, and maybe after neglect from this amount of time, it does need to be demolished, but I just want to make sure everybody's clear that the zoning for that property depends on the elevations of that building. So anything that happens on that property going forward needs to match the elevations of that building that the property was, considering demolishing. So it's an interesting zoning condition, but it'd be unfortunate to see it tore down because of neglect, but we will still have a building there at some point that looks exactly like that building if it is torn down. That's correct, right?
I would have to pull up the conditional file again to see exactly what it says, but whenever it is redeveloped, if it is redeveloped, it would have to meet the conditions that were approved unless the current or future property owner decides to come through and amend those conditions to change them, in which it will come to you all.
And I frankly don't recall what it was that we conditioned. I know that we were very hopeful that the building could be preserved at the time. The owner was hopeful. And it is truly through neglect that this property is going to have to be torn down. There were possibilities. And the owner has simply failed to adequately protect the property. It has now become such an eyesore that I think we get communication almost weekly with respect to what in the world is going on Hillsboro Street, that we should have the entrance to our town so denigrated. So my personal opinion, and of course I don't vote on this matter, is that that it is a neglected property, and that I certainly hope there are provisions, Mr. Shipp, that would require a replication of the footprint and elevation of that building, because the whole reason that this board chose to rezone it for commercial was based on the idea that we wanted it to look from the outside like a residential property. The uses that we would allow on the inside would be they would not be particularly traffic generating. They would be office kinds of things and maybe some light retail, but it would be interesting to know what it is that we required back several years ago that we permitted the rezoning and the time allowed for it to neglect and fall down essentially. Is there anything?
I'm confident there's a small expansion of the footprint that's allowed, but the elevations of the current building are a condition of the rezoning.
Okay.
And there's a limited number of retail uses.
Yeah.
And service uses.
I remember that we did limit, because a bank was at one time proposed, and we said that was too much of a traffic generator, too much of a outside of the envision that we had.
Right. Right, so if anyone wanted to build a structure on that site that looked different than the current structure, they would need to come for a rezoning of this board.
So what is the pleasure of the board?
Janie, I think that I know the answer to this question, but I wasn't feeling confident enough to answer it when a constituent asked me, why is it that they're not already in violation of the agreement, and thus wouldn't the rezoning revert back to the original?
The zoning that it was prior.
Yeah,
That hasn't been a common practice that I've been accustomed to. When a property comes into violation, that it goes back on the rezoning. It just stays that way. And then if the property, if it's not remedied, then it goes to civil, it goes to court. But the zoning has stayed in place unless it's something specific in the conditions, which files are a little all over the place. So I've been trying to look for it as you've all been talking to see what the conditions say.
mhm. It might be referenced under the Atlas Boone name. That's how we've often talked about it before it became the Deacon property.
We have it by PID and address.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Another question was whether or not the developer might have permission or flexibility to, while not changing the elevation or the exterior appearance of the structure, but move it around in the lot. So I don't know, hypothetically, to create more parking in the front or more parking in the rear. And that was a question I couldn't answer.
unless it's laid out specifically in the conditions, it would have to meet the setbacks that are in place of development.
Okay.
And this rezoning was only for the front portion of the lot.
Yes.
And so the rear portion of the lot was not rezoned, and parking is a use by right on that back portion of the lot. So
Okay. Thank you.
So, okay. The entire property wasn't zoned,
no,
but it was a conditional zoning.
that's correct. It was a strange one. I guess what is the with the 2-week delay, like, can we, I guess, give a 2-week grace period, but then, you know, can that be a motion to have a 2-week grace period, but then enforce at that point, or does this need to come? Is that what this is
Right.
saying, or does it need to come?
So the point of the memo is to grant them until May 8th. And if that's what the pleasure of the board is, then on May 8th, if we don't have that signed contract, then the town would move forward. I can bring it back to you if you all want to, but if that's what you want to do, just allow these additional 2 weeks, then we can move forward on after May 8th.
And I guess what is the town's next step for enforcement if the applicant continues to delay?
Demolition,
So the town would do it
right,
and then leave the property for.
right. It would have to go through the process. We would get bids, so the code enforcement would get bids. And essentially, if they don't pay us, then it would be a lien on the property.
Well, Mayor Perry, I appreciate your concerns about the aesthetics, and I share those concerns, but I also have concerns about the safety that a young person doing something foolish might go into the building, and if it catches fire, that would be really a great hazard. And Commissioner Farrell, I imagine you know far better than any of us. I do remember, Commissioner Farrell, you had expressed concern when we first rezoned this about the creep of commercial development farther and farther north into that residential neighborhood. Have your concerns been addressed, or is that something that you're still concerned about?
I know when Mr. Deacon asked us about this rezoning, I believe, to the best of my memory, he had proposed closing that front entrance and all the parking would be coming through his business in the back. And I just asked Kyle this question. I was just curious if this business home is demoed, is it a possibility for the town to go back and rezone it residential? I mean, I'm just asking this hypotheticals. I don't have any idea, but if we didn't want creeping commercial up the street, if we could go back to that to residential. I'm sure Mr. Deaconshaw probably doesn't want that, but is that a possibility?
We can check into
Have an
it.
applicant come and apply, or could the town board just move to rezone that residential
I haven't,
after demo?
right. I haven't been involved personally. I know there's language about it, so we can look into it and follow up.
Paul Messick, would it be a stretch of the imagination to imagine that a violation by Mr. Deacon could trigger a return to the original residential zoning?
I can't imagine what condition you're talking about. It was rezoned. And if he doesn't want to use it for that purpose, it can stay vacant forever. The reason you're doing this action is because it's a dilapidated building. It's not being used for anything. So I don't see any condition that would cause the zoning to revert. Now, whether or not you choose to downzone it, that's another issue altogether,
Would we have the power to do that?
depending on lots of circumstances. Theoretically, yes.
Could we be guided towards those circumstances at a future date?
Sure.
And I think too, the new land use plan we approved last meeting does show that area as downtown support now. So that's a change from the old one that showed it as residential. It does show downtown support creeping up that area, so to speak. So.
And one is supposed to be consistent with one's plans.
Well, the next property to the north was under consideration at one point for rezoning, but we rejected that proposal, and we said that this is as far as the commercial section will go, and we required that property to the north remain residential.
Correct.
Well, Jenny Phelps, thank you again for your efforts on this. I have noticed that some very tiny improvements have been made. I think that the steps on the outside of the building were removed. And I hope that he'll get it boarded up as quick as he can before it's demolished. Again, to try and minimize that risk of something catastrophic happening. So thank you for your efforts and attention to this.
So with a contract, is there any timeline for demolition? So I mean, a signed contract is something, but is there required?
The quote is valid for 60 days. So it's just a quote that we have so far. And Mr. Deacon called me this morning and we discussed it. And he said he should hopefully have a contract by the end of the week. And so I've let him know that what we want to see in the contract, which I feel is probably common, is to have a date that they will come out and demo, and also when they're going to remove the items, and potentially where they may be going. So in the quote that he has, house demolition, including obtaining the demolition permit from the county, demolition, haul off and disposal of two-story house and sidewalk, and the concrete steps of the street will be left in place.
The theory here is that it's better for the owner to do the demolition than the town, because it is going to be a substantial cost, I'm sure. And as long as you have this hanging over his head in that respect, with the contract and with Janie monitoring it, the theory is that that will make it work rather than the town have to take action.
I agree, that's the best case. I just want to make sure that there's historically been some inactions. I don't want just a contract signed to delay this further. You know,
Ms. Phelps is on the case.
all right. So I guess 2 weeks is acceptable, although it seems silly after all this time.
So I'll give a little bit of background information. They had applied for permits to remedy the minimum housing violation, which was replacing the windows, removing the steps or removing the door that's on the second floor. Wait, the steps already moved. So removing the door on the second floor that just leads to the ground. And then also fixing the front porch, or just, removing it and also putting a fresh coat of paint on it. So they had started the application for that. And then during the process, it was more than what they had intended. So that's why they decided to go ahead and contact demo companies.
So basically, you would need for us to approve the extension to May 8th, 2023.
Yes.
Okay, I make the motion to approve the extension to May 8th, 2023.
Second.
Moved by Mayor Pro-Tem Baldwin, seconded by Commissioner Shipp. Those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Janie.
Thank you.
Under new business, Kent Jackson is going to bring us information about an ABC board appointment.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. So Commissioner Shipp provided staff with an application for candidate applicant to be considered for an coming ABC board vacancy. So Commissioner Shipp, you may want to discuss the application, and you'd sent some communication earlier today about the background.
Sure. Just if you remember our last update from the ABC board, Mr. Harrington has said that Ms. Turner wanted to be replaced on the ABC board, and her term it did expire on November 2022. And so she's currently serving on an unexpired term, but would like to be replaced as she has some other pursuits in life right now. So CP has been involved in our meetings. Not here tonight. He had two baseball games with one for each son. But he's been looking for ways to get involved. And so he asked me about joining the ABC board.
And CP who?
Stewart.
For the public.
Yes, thank you. So I'll make a motion to appoint Mr. Stewart to the ABC board.
I'll second that.
Motion by Commissioner Shipp, seconded by Commissioner Bonitz. Those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, the motion carries unanimously. Number 2 under new business is moved from the consent agenda, resolution for climate action plan. I ask that this be added to the agenda because it has been a long-term concern of mine to actually make some positive step in the direction of addressing climate change here in Pittsboro. And there have been a number of small efforts. There have been a number of concerns. There's been a vital movement for electric vehicles, but a climate action plan is one of those things that that we could put forward that would help guide us through a number of things. First of all, this resolution asks for staff input. And so it's not a matter of us sitting around saying that we need to ban plastic bags at the grocery stores or tax aluminum cans. What it means is that we're asking our staff to look at their particular departments and their opportunities to be able to save the environment, save money, and be on course to make some real changes in the town. Those recommendations then would come back to us and hopefully be incorporated into our strategic plan. Now, the climate action plan is something I believe that could be put forward in the next couple of months with ideas from staff and with ideas from us as well. The strategic plan, my understanding is, will be a longer term project guided by the Triangle J Council of Governments or Pines of the Carolina or whatever their new name is. And that we would be able to document our efforts by making it a part of the strategic plan. So that is what is before you. And so the resolution speaks pretty well for itself. It is somewhat, it is as long as it is because there were lots of opportunities that we wanted to give the town staff an opportunity to look at different ways of approaching climate action in their own departments. And so that is what we have for discussion.
I would make a motion to move consideration of this to our next meeting. I saw the agenda change around 4 o'clock or so this afternoon, but I haven't had an opportunity to review the content. So.
All right. Motion by Commissioner Shipp, seconded by Commissioner Vose, to take new business item number 2, the climate action plan, and put it on the agenda for next time. Those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries unanimously. And now we have a final item of the Pittsboro Boys and Girls Club report. Sarah Reese Womack is with us tonight. And Ms. Womack, if you'd come and address us on an update. Thank you.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much. And my name's Sarah Womack. I'm interim CEO of the Boys and Girls Club of Central Carolina, of which Pittsboro is one of our locations. And I'm speaking tonight in favor of a request that we've put into the town of Pittsboro to support a Parks and Rec program that we run daily through the Pittsboro Boys and Girls Club called Triple Play. And Triple Play is an opportunity for our kids to participate in recreational activities that build their social skills, build their physical fitness, and in my opinion, their mental health as well. And so it's an incredible program, and we offer a lot of really remarkable programs at the Pittsboro Boys and Girls Club, but this is the kids' favorite program. And so it's encouraging to me as somebody who grew up in the 80s and 90s and largely played outside for my childhood, that of all the opportunities that we offer kids these days, that they would choose to name the physical fitness opportunity as their favorite. So the request is for $30,000, and that helps us staff this program that again runs daily in the afternoons during the school year and throughout the summer. It also helps us with equipment and you know, the ongoing cost of running a recreation program that serves kids. And so those are the stats about the program, but as a final kind of piece of support for the case of supporting the club, I would just offer that when you support the Pittsboro Club or any of our 4 clubs across Lee, Chatham, and Harnett counties, what you're really supporting is an opportunity for kids to have hope. We support great futures for all of our kids. And one thing that I heard from a long-term donor of ours just a couple of weeks ago was, I asked her, you know, why do you support our organization? And she said, well, it's pretty simple. She said, I've been over at the club on kids' first day at the club. And they come in and you can just see it in their faces. They're not excited. They kind of have dead eyes. Those were her words, dead eyes. And I thought, gosh, that's not what you want to see in kids. You know, kids have that spark and that joy and the enthusiasm. And she said, but these kids don't a lot of times in a lot of cases because we don't know. They came from a bad day at school. Maybe it's always a bad day at school. They came to the club and they're not looking forward to going home. And maybe they don't usually look forward to going home. We don't know their circumstances. But she said, inevitably, I can come back a week later and the same kid comes bounding into the door. They're full of life. They've got that spark. They've got that joy. And she said the thing we gave them was hope. And so I appreciate your consideration of this request. You're funding recreation, you're funding physical fitness, but you're also funding hope for kids and the great futures that we provide them. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sarah.
I appreciated seeing the update. I didn't see the request.
Just to clarify, it's an ongoing contract that we have. So we have the quarterly updates and then this is just an opportunity for an in-person annual update.
Thank you.
So although no approval technically is necessary, is this something which is in our budget as proposed upcoming?
I don't know actually, but it's a contract that we have.
Okay.
So.
We have no closed session tonight. And so we are ready for adjournment if.
Madam Mayor, I have just one.
Certainly.
It's kind of out of curiosity, maybe for Robbie or Chuck. We've had several site plans and rezonings and all like this, and the wastewater is going to the reclamation center down there off of 64. Where are you guys in allotment there? I mean, percent of sewer to wastewater that y'all have used? I'm just curious. I mean, are you in the plans now of updating, right?
Yeah, Mr. Farrell. We are with the Chatham Park Water Recovery Center. We've allocated about 260,000 gallons out of the 500,000 that's available. Actual flow, don't quote me, but we're probably, I think, like 20 to 30,000 gallons, actual flow gallons per day. So anyway, we work on this, we talk about it every week, but with that, it's, the actual flow is tracking, but what happens is projects can't proceed because we have to have allocation before we can pull sewer permits and put pipe in the ground. So that's kind of the bottleneck we're facing right now. Okay. But anyway, just to answer your question, it's roughly half has already been allocated out of the 500,000.
Allocated, and you said, well, how much your actual flow?
Actual is 20 to 30,000 gallons. It's yeah, and some of that depends on Northwood High School. That's a lot of that because we're using that flow as startup flow to get the plant operational. So, and that will eventually be diverted back to the town's wastewater treatment plant. But so it's, anyway, it's 15 to 30,000 gallons, somewhere in there.
Okay, thanks, Rob.
And Robbie or Chuck, I think I know I would like a tour of that plant, and we talked about that a little while ago. But if any other members of the board, yeah, so set us up something, and we'd love to tour the plant and have a real education about the new technology used there. Okay. Anything further? I think it's wonderful that we're welcoming a new planning director, and next week our new town manager will be on site. He'll take the oath privately with Carrie on Monday and then be officially publicly sworn in at our next meeting on the 8th. And we look forward to that. He's moved in this weekend and has all the appropriate sore muscles from all the boxes. So anyway, so is there a motion to adjourn?
Second.
Motion by Pamela Baldwin, seconded by John Bonitz. Those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
We're adjourned until the 8th of